slappers, you're making the same mistakes that guitarists have made on the forums on YouTube land for the past 15 years. You're going to get upset, but it's all about this, the pick. There is a myth, it's one of the biggest myths in music, that real bass players slap or they use their fingers in order to be considered a proper bass player. And not many people know, but practically all of the biggest hits were done with a pick and flat wound strings. And in fact, some people went to great lengths to mute that even more by putting felt underneath saddles, all sorts of stuff. Where am I getting my information from? I'm getting my information from the greats. Guitar has completely disappeared when it comes to popular music, and bass is still relevant to a degree, but it's being replaced by electronic bass. And you will not find a lot of slap bass. You will not find a lot of really busy Davie style bass on hits, on big songs, on huge albums. Picks are huge when it comes to actual listenable music that normies and music fans and audiophiles alike tend to gravitate towards. The people doing the busy slapping, the busy finger up and down, they're wasting their time, like so many guitarists are right now, doing the clean tapping, doing the what I call post-progressive with the Strymon reverb and ad nauseum. You're only gonna get a tiny section of people that's gonna appreciate you. I've seen the best of the best, the top, the people that Davie looks up to. And Davie has more influence over bass players than anybody. The reason that 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds are picking up the bass these days are because of YouTubers like him, which is amazing. I know he says, "What's up, slappers?" He can play the pick like a mother. Amazing pick player, but he's kind of fallen into that trap where bass players are always doing the fingerstyle and the slapping. But much like from the old shrapnel labels where shred was born practically.
Solo.
These players, they really do not make that much money unless you're at the very, very top. So you have percentages within percentages. So if you are getting obsessed with slapping and doing really busy stuff, you are wasting your time. And I know this from personal experience and kind of painful experience, because my brother is at the top of that chain. He is one of the top percentiles. And he regrets going down that path. 15 years later, he's kind of, not so much regret, but he's come to the decision that he has to change and he has to get on with his life rather than keep on going down this path of excellence when it comes to bass guitar. Here's some footage of my brother playing. a conversation with him. I told him I was going to do this video, and he said that looking back, if he was going from a bass perspective, he wishes that he had wrote more, kept the basics, and really not concentrated on himself so much, because he thought of himself as the center point of the band, where because he was so good, he figured that everybody should follow me and follow my lead and do this. But he wasn't thinking about the band as a gestalt, you know, as everybody pulling in the same direction. So, and I see that. Think about it, right? Think about it. Think about Davie. How often do you listen to him playing his amazing slap bass? How often is it just him and a backing track of drums? Because he fills out everything else. You can't play like that with a whole band, with the guitars, with vocals, with hooks, with choruses, with solos. You can't keep on doing that stuff underneath it because it sounds ridiculous, you know? It's very hard to keep that level of Skillage in the Village up and have an actual song which is cohesive and listenable. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read some advice from Carol Kaye, and she is probably the most famous bass player. There's been a few videos out on her saying that she's the most famous bass player that you've never heard of. Played on 10,000 sessions. She has played bass for songs that your mother knows, household name songs. She used a pick and flat ones, and this is what she said. There are bass players who rip people to death for playing with a pick. I say, hey, they don't know history. Most of these records that came out in the 60s were done with a pick on flat ones. That was the sound. 98% bass parts cut in Hollywood in the 60s were done with a pick and flat wound strings. Good Vibrations, the Beach Boys, that's her. She's worked with Phil Spector. She's worked with Brian Wilson, obviously, with the Good Vibrations, with the Beach Boys. She's worked with Quincy Jones. She was a part of the Wrecking Crew. Just search Wrecking Crew and you'll find documentaries on these amazing session players that knew everything inside out. Think about hits, like proper household name hits. The Beatles, pick, flat ones. Taxman, doom, 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 pick and flat ones. Try to please her. She only plays one night stands. So I've seen the top of the mountain, but I've been feet away from people that Davie worship. I'm around about 100, 200 people at best that go to the bass jam. Not many people are into it. Who else used a pick and flat ones? Roger Waters, Pink Floyd, Sting from the Police. Sting was kind of a busy bass player, but still he had that sound. He wasn't showing off completely. You know, he had the hooks. Even when it gets into rock, you know, you got Phil Lynott, people like that. And here on my channel, I'm not a big fan of rules where I say, you know, use a pick and flat ones. You can use a pick, you know, and regular bass strings. You can use your fingers, but just think about the path that YouTube land takes you down when it comes to being a producer and a musician and a songwriter. My brother wishes that he had pursued songwriting over the path that he took of being the top of the top, you know, and he did get there, and now he's like, where are the gigs? You know, it's tough, man. It's tough. You get up there and is it worth pushing everything in your life? Because he really did, like, bass was his life for a long time. And to get the level of recognition he got and just the respect from a lot of his peers, you know, that doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't really put you into people's playlists. You know, it's yes, he got to the top of that bass mountain. At what cost? He kind of is at a part of his life now where he's like, I just have to try and make money. You know, he's at that age of his life where he has to kind of do the bootstraps thing, and bass is kind of going down by the wayside. It's sad because I had a conversation with him and it was worse than I thought when we got into it. You know, I was saying I'm about to kind of make light of your situation, of how good you are and where does it really get you at the end of the day, you know, just giving him a light ribbon. But then when he was talking to me about how it affected him really long term, I was like, fuck, this is a bummer, you know, because he's so talented And now he's just working rather than, you know, day jobs and stuff, rather than the limelight and the, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, I guess. So yeah, I'm not saying you have to use a pick and you have to use flat ones. I'm just saying, know your lane when it comes to being a musician and being a producer and being a lot of you guitarists now. Like, I'm gonna do another Fat Strings Friday on how I got this bass sound. Because you can already use a pick if you're a guitarist, which really comes in really handy if you want to become a producer. So you already know the pick technique. A lot of you know how to play bass basically, but you've been like thumbed down by bass players saying, oh, you got to use your fingers. Yeah, right. Okay, you got to use your fingers. What are you going to do? Are you telling me that on your phone from your coffee shop gig? 18 people at your jazz fusion gig? That Slap Instagram clip that you had was 50 likes. Good job, man. Am I at a battle of the bands? Is this an infomercial? So if you do want to have effective social distancing, just start slapping the bass, slapping and popping and finger runs, and all the young people, they'd be like, oh my god, am I at a Christian rock concert? So like I say, like you don't have to just use a pick and flat ones. The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, one of the most famous bass lines, even though that wasn't even a single, that's where you think about how much of a hook is that. Think about your hooks. He wasn't slapping the shit out of that, but he used his fingers with flat ones. There's a muted sub-harmonic to a lot of the hits, a lot of the famous bass lines. It's not as attack heavy as popping and slapping and picking and plucking. Okay? There is I like to call it a subconscious sub which is moreish. Like, I often put mics behind this to hear that nightclub whomp, the whoop whoop. Sometimes you're standing outside a nightclub and you hear that bass and you can feel it, but you can't hear it ring as bell. But there's something amazing about that sound. So think about that. Think about hooks. Think about songwriting. Think about staying in the pocket. You do need to stay in your lane, bass players. If you want success, success, not be worshipped by 40 neckbeard bass groupies that can all probably play the same shit you can. And thanks to my patrons of tone. I slowed down a bit. Recently, we were on 60. I'm trying to get to 100 so I can cut these damn strings. This is going to take my eyes out. Is that going to make you do it? Just $1 a month. Just 40 of you. I don't want to make money off this. I just want to cut my strings. It's been years. But thanks to Aaron F. and Music Therapy Lars. You guys are awesome for signing up. And that's it. So if you like these types of vids, please share them because you're getting funneled down Fox, down NBC, down CBS, down old media. YouTube now has sold us all out. So if you're into these type of things, if you don't want bad news constantly, just subscribe to your favorite YouTubers because they need it. My channel is really chugging along slowly. If you can't sign up for our Patreon, just a like, just a comment, just subscribe, and it all helps. But share this on bass forums, share this on, if anybody likes bass that you think that might be going down the same route where they're amazing but they're getting no traction because what I said, let them know. You have to save stringed instruments because the guitarists are going down the same route, just constantly just not even thinking about a song. They're just thinking about how can I blow you away with my tone, how can I blow you away with my technique, me. Same thing my brother admittedly said was his biggest mistake. And stay in your lane, guitarists, stay in your lane, bass players, and we might get somewhere. We might get traction beyond YouTube land, you know? And it's not because I can't slap or pop. It's nothing to do with that.